Thank you very much. It's my honour to be here from Perth, Western Australia. But before I start, I should congratulate our previous speakers, Herr Steinmeier, Herr Gruher and Madame Girardin, and Germany and France for their wonderful efforts spearheading the effort to stop the Ebola crisis. I believe that my own Member of Parliament, Julie Bishop, who is the Australian Foreign Minister, has also made donations quite early on towards the global fight against Ebola. Naturally, we cannot do much from Australia, but certainly we have many people who are trying to help in different ways, and having the ability to move in and out of these countries through safely through a facility such as the one being set up in Europe is going to be very important to enable countries like Australia to do our best to help. I'm a clinical professor of infectious diseases at the University of Western Australia in Perth, so it is timely to start the meeting with someone who knows the difference between a bacterium and a virus. Of course, I am not an Ebola expert. Nobody is. Ebola virus will be the subject of a special session, however, on this conference tomorrow morning. My background is that with my colleague Dr. Warren, I discovered that mankind was infected with a stomach bacterium called Helicobacter, which infected more than half of mankind and caused stomach ulcers and gastric cancer. The lesson from our discovery is to ask the question, why are we so reluctant to accept new teachings in medicine and science? Our discovery taught us that we should discard superstition and focus on facts. Dan Boorstin, who was the librarian of the US Congress at the time, stated that the greatest obstacle to knowledge is not ignorance, it is the illusion of knowledge. The strong tradition of blaming poorly understood diseases on stress was shown to be a waste of time, impairing the search for a cure because we already thought we knew the cure, and that was stress. So in the beginning, Dr. Warren and I had a new observation, the discovery of bacteria in the stomach, perhaps more common in ulcer patients. So this was an association. Many new medical discoveries start this way, and we ask, is it cause or effect? Or is the new observation just an unrelated coincidence? At this point, we can only make a strong connection with Berlin in the 19th century, when Robert Koch, discoverer of the tubercle bacillus, tuberculosis. So many healthy people could be found with bacteria in their sputum. It seemed unlikely at the time that these bugs caused fatal TB. So Koch described his famous 4 postulates. Isolate the bacteria in pure form from a human, infect it into an animal, observe that a similar disease process occurs in the animal, and finally, the same organism can be recovered once again from the diseased animal. For his work 130 years ago, Koch was awarded the Nobel Prize in 1905. So Warren and I began our research merely being interested in how bacteria could live in the stomach at all. With so much stomach acid, all bacteria should be killed. We were unable to convince the skeptics that the Helicobacter organism was the true cause of ulcers because, like Koch's TB bacillus, many healthy people apparently had the infection. So it was necessary to fulfill Koch's postulates by infecting an experimental animal with the bacterium and perhaps seeing a stomach ulcer develop. We did not have an animal model at that time. Helicobacter is almost totally specific to humans. So a human guinea pig was necessary. Actually, it was me. So I was tested to show that I was a healthy animal to start with. And then I drank 1 billion colonies of Helicobacter. 1 week later, I began to vomit, and 10 days later, I was found to have an inflamed stomach, teeming with Helicobacter pylori. Thus, I had fulfilled Koch's postulates. Helicobacter was a pathogen, and so we could move on. Since then, the antibiotic cure for ulcers has been given to millions of people. Ulcers are practically non-existent in the Western world, and the wasteful superstition that daily stress causes physical disease can be put to rest. Actually, Dr. Warren and I were awarded the Nobel Prize in 2005 for this work, appropriately on the 100th anniversary of Robert Koch's Nobel Prize for tuberculosis. I told this story because it provides several lessons for us health scientists, administrators and politicians. Firstly, and perhaps the most important lesson, is that curiosity-driven research is the best kind of research. Our example was that an interesting acid-resistant bacteria led to the cure of a major disease. To government agencies and funders of science, don't try to direct your scientific research too much. Let the university and academic institutions do what they think is important, relevant and interesting. And you might have a great difficulty proving that it's cost effective or showing the number of dollars you get back from each dollar you spend on that kind of research. You should subsidise curiosity-driven research because it might not be possible these days for two young investigators to move so far in such a short time as Robin Warren and I did in Perth. In the 21st century, research is very expensive, perhaps because of the layers of administrative oversight. In my case, I had to skip the ethics committee because, in my opinion, the human experiment was so important to do. So whereas Robert Koch and myself could accomplish a lot with a few resources, in our very risk-averse system nowadays produces many layers of expense and time delay. If we agree that these things are necessary in a globally relevant system, then we must provide the free, subsidised infrastructure so that our young scientists don't waste their lives testing just one or two ideas. They can test a new hypothesis every week or a new treatment several times a week. Pharmaceutical companies, I'm sympathetic towards their case, but they cannot be across every new hypothesis or proposed product. How can they be expected to show interest in paradigm shifts? It takes hundreds of millions of dollars to bring a new drug to market. After that, sales is the major activity, so that they can recover that investment for their shareholders. We can't blame drug companies for ignoring new cost-effective technologies which might replace their current money-earning paradigm.